Hi there. Welcome to Bourbon Turntable. This is the show that blends the love of music with the love of whiskey. Tonight, we're celebrating the third anniversary of this little show. Started out with three of us as hosts when when we started this 3 years ago. Dwindled down to two, and now it is me. So I guess a win survivor or something like that. With me tonight are three guys that I consider friends, that I enjoy and respect the things that they write and the things that they have to say about whiskey. So what we'll do right now is I'll just give them a quick opportunity to introduce themselves. We'll start with Mike. Tell everybody who you are and what you do in the whiskey world.
Okay, I am Mike Lisac. You can usually find me Monday nights on My Whiskey Den, the original My Whiskey Den, on YouTube, where we focus on American craft whiskeys. Although we do dabble in other things, but that is my primary residence for whiskey on the internet.
Okay, Steve, how about yourself?
I am Steve Coomes. I am, what have I done? I've been writing about spirits for about 11 years. I've written for a bunch of publications, Bourbon Plus, bourbonbanter.com, where I do a lot of bourbonbanter.com, I should say, where I do a lot of editing and writing. Whiskey Watch, it goes on and on and on. Do a lot of work for distilleries, specifically helping them find their online voice. And I'm like you guys, man. I'm just a big enthusiast who likes to get together and review and chat and talk about what we're drinking.
Yeah. And David.
So I'm David. I host the Whiskey Ring podcast. Been a one-man show the whole way, but it might change in the future. We'll see. I'm looking for most interesting stories in spirits, the most interesting distilleries, producers, writers, and I also write for Whiskey Reviewer, for Bourbon and Banter occasionally, and been doing this for about 4 years now.
Okay, well, great. Thank you guys for joining me. And just the format for tonight is I've put together a series of questions or comments, remarks that I'll get the opinion of these fine gentlemen, and we'll make this as much fun as possible, so that it's actually kind of counter programming to tonight's presidential debate. So tune into us. Don't mess with those other folks, because that won't be nearly as fun. It'll make you want to drink. But before we get started, a couple of things. The first thing that we'll be pouring and tasting together is a Still Austin Oated bourbon, and we'll be trying that here in just a few minutes. But if you guys could just pour a glass there. Want to wish a happy 70th anniversary to Jimmy Russell over at Wild Turkey. So happy anniversary, Jimmy. Well done, sir. Cheers to you.
Yeah.
So tonight we want to start out by talking about the issues that are truly important to the American people. So we're going to start out talking about the economy, because I think that's the most important issue to Americans today. So my first question to you guys is, the future of bourbon is... And David, I'll let you start off filling in that blank.
All right. The future of bourbon is local, I would say.
Local.
Okay.
And what do you mean by local?
So there's, the big guys are still putting out plenty of really good products, really good juice, but for a long time now in the, let's say, craft or smaller distilleries, it's mainly been either the local communities or the 0.5%, 1% of us drinkers who know about these places and want to learn about them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think especially after COVID, where you had direct-to-consumer shipping and just widening shipping, where people could actually try something. Like, I'm in New York, I could try something from Nebraska or or even California, somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I think, has made people look a little closer, like what distilleries are nearby them in their states.
Yeah,
every state's got a distillery, at least one. Some only have 2 or 3, but everyone's got at least one.
Okay.
And so I think it's going to be looking around at what your state is making.
The future of bourbon is local. Steve, what do you think? The future of bourbon is what?
I'm going to take the opposite tack from David. I think the future of bourbon is ultimately international. There's, and I want to clarify that a little bit. By no means do I think that the United States is saturated with bourbon. I live in Kentucky, for those who don't know. You would think that bourbon had conquered Kentucky, and it has yet to do that. You step outside of the few major cities in the state, and you'll be hard-pressed to find a well-made old-fashioned. You'll be hard-pressed to find a bar that is majority Kentucky bourbon, or even just majority American whiskey. You see way too much vodka, flavored spirits, things like that dominate. So I think just based on the comments that I get when I talk to larger distilleries, so for instance, Heaven Hill, like Kate Latz said last year, she's the co-president there. She said, if we could just capture 1% of the Scotch market, we will have paid for our distillery with just that alone. So that's a $200 million distillery, and 1% of the Scotch market is let's see, 1 million cases. I think Heaven Hill can put 1 million cases into the market. Now, how long does that take? We don't know. But I think even if we slip back to today, though, I mean, the immediate future for bourbon is slow. I don't know if anybody read the Mark Brown newsletter this morning, but it had those numbers from Jefferies, those analysts that show huge amounts of inventory at distributorships still. So whether customers aren't buying, whether they still are whittling away at their COVID stash, we don't know. But it's slowing down. It's not a crash like a lot of people think, but it's definitely a tip for right now while the market realizes, or how should we say, becomes more realistic and balances things out. But I do think long-term growth for the industry will be overseas with new customers.
Mike, what do you think?
Okay, is this my perceived future? what I think that it will be?
What your perceived future of the bourbon economy? Yeah.
My perceived future is actually a little bit of both of these guys, both of David and Steve's, but primarily I think that one of the biggest things that's going to happen is eventually states will figure out that if you controlled shipping directly out of a distillery, allow those distilleries, small distilleries, to ship right out of there, allow them to use certain shippers. Maybe there's a $1 tax that you put on those for alcohol, more tax money. Nothing speaks to the big fat people that are in charge like tax money. But if you were able to do that and allow that, it's going to bypass the distributors in some case, and maybe that's not the worst thing, especially because they're not giving the smaller producers a fair shake. But the larger producers, for them, if they could do that, a place like Heaven Hill, if you could ship stuff directly out of Heaven Hill and not have to go through the soon-to-be monopoly of distributorship, that'd be major. And then that opens the doors even to go out internationally.
Yeah. Well, and distributors are kind of the devil of the whiskey industry in a lot of ways. They make things pretty difficult on both the consumer and I think the stores and the distilleries as well. If you don't have that kind of weight you can throw around. I mean, personally, I think that where we're headed with bourbon, I think it's just kind of like a proceed with caution, because I think there is we're in the middle of a market correction with whiskey. I think people are seeing the price of barrels of liquid going down. I think we're seeing layoffs at some of the larger distilleries. And one article I read says there's a craft distillery shutting its doors, one each week. So there's a market correction going on. I think the ones that are strongest financially and the most clever in how they produce and promote and ship their product, I think those are the ones that are going to survive and thrive. But Steve, a question on what you had said, the going to the foreign markets. I mean, that's kind of a thing that's been talked about and tried for a while, and I don't know that it's necessarily had the success that the distilleries in America had hoped it would. what makes you think that it's going to be successful in the future? What do you see that's going to happen differently now?
Well, the upside is, at least what bourbon distillers tell me, that you already have a massive amount of people who already like brown spirits, right?
Mhm.
And strangely enough, that they believe, I shouldn't say strangely enough, logically enough, maybe, that they have a better chance of converting, or at least getting some share of throat from Scotch drinkers who are already accustomed to aged spirits.
Right.
So there's a lot of those out there. There's 100 million cases of being drunk throughout the globe, and they say that's great. That's perhaps easier maybe than converting from wine, converting them from beer, from whatever. Whether they have those massive sales forces deployed yet to be able to do that, I don't know. Certainly Jim Beam and Brown Forman do. I think they have a presence. Brown Forman, at the very least, is in 172 countries. And I would imagine Jim Beam is in more, if there are even more on the globe. I don't know how many countries there are on the globe. But I think it will take a huge investment into Salesforce and having those people out there who are ready to do it, people who know the market. I think that's where your local part kind of comes into, David, is that they've got to know that local customer, and they have to. That this is, what did Booker Noe used to say? Just get it in their mouth; they'll appreciate it. Well, getting it in the mouth one at a time is a lot of work.
Yeah.
So I don't think this is anything that's going to happen immediately, but I think that's really where you grow.
Yeah.
So
And
we'll
Kevin,
see. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah.
Or David.
Oh yeah, I was just going to jump off of Kevin's question, in that we historically have seen bourbon brands reach out to, I think specifically of the Japanese market, of getting, Buffalo Trace or I should say Sazerac products and their predecessor brands out in Japan, and a couple in Europe as well. I'm curious from an historical perspective if you think there's a difference in how they approach the international market then versus how they're going to approach the market now.
Are you asking me or Kevin?
I mean, either one of you. That's an open question.
Go ahead, Steve. You got an answer. Fire away.
David stumped me on that one. It's kind of funny that we think of the Japanese market having just kind of been there for a long time, right? I don't know any history about how that happened other than it happened. So I'm not qualified, David, to answer that question.
Yeah. I think it's just a uniqueness of that market, and I don't know that there's anything that's magical about that necessarily. But I think that there certainly is a market out there internationally, but beyond Japan, I think the second international market is Spain, if I remember that correctly. But there's a lot of room for growth, and I think there are some whiskeys being made in the United States that are kind of bridge the gap whiskeys. American single malt, kind of get the Scotch drinker used to drinking an American product, and then maybe you grow from there. We're gonna move on to another topic now. But before we do that, I want to get everybody's thought on the Still Awesome flavored bourbon. Steve, I know you're a fan of Still Awesome.
I love the brand. I love this is great. This fits that house style. It's fairly rich and luxuriant. I would assume that it's still 100 proof, like most of their.
This is 109. This one's
109.
Yeah, it's not a bottled in bond. It's a 109.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And 5 years probably.
3. It
3.
is
That's remarkable.
aged at least 3 years. So.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
I love it. I think it's great. It's an excellent mouthfeel. I would not have guessed that it is 109 proof. It doesn't drink 109. It just drinks flavorful.
Yeah.
Pretty.
Has a nice oatmeal cookie note. I think.
I totally agreed on the mouthfeel and proof. Drinks well below. I probably would have pegged it like a 95 to 100 on there. There's something about oat whiskey, oated whiskeys in general. That's one of those grains that I'd really love people to try out playing with more. It's not without historical precedent. They do it all the time in Ireland and someplace in Scotland. So it's used, but it gives such a unique mouthfeel. And this will get me in trouble, but I think it gives a lot more flavor than wheat does.
Yeah.
So I prefer an oated bourbon to a wheated bourbon.
Yeah.
I'm on your side there, brother. I don't think wheat add much character until 100 proof, when the spices start to unravel. Otherwise, as an important brand ambassador from a distillery I will not name says, wheat is basically a lack of rye and corn. People say wheat's so sweet because all you're tasting is corn. I think he's right at 90 proof and 92, 95.
You can only write caramel for wheated bourbon so many times.
Yeah, exactly. But I agree with you, David. It really rounds it off. I love the mouthfeel that the screen gives it.
Mike, what are your thoughts? What's your fat guy tasting note?
I was just going to say, I will give you your first fat guy tasting note of the night. Hey, have you ever had the no-bake cookies?
Yes.
Yeah, that I get that on the palate, but yeah, the mouthfeel on this is it's really good, and I agree with both these guys about oats. And there's not been a lot of oated whiskeys that are out. There should be more.
Mm-hmm.
I've only had 100% oated. It is yet to be released. That's in Indiana, and it was spectacular. And I look forward to that coming out at some point.
Yep.
We'll have to talk offline if it's the same Indiana one that I think it is, because
that's the one.
I'm pretty sure
the big one. It's not the big one.
Not the big one.
Okay, another topic that is important to the American people, especially this election season. You hear a lot about immigration. So my question to you, and we'll start with Mike, is what is your favorite non-American spirit?
Ooh. Actually, that's actually not that hard. Armagnac.
Okay. All right. Steve, how about yourself?
Tequila. Absolutely. I was trying to switch to that agave background, which is a standard background here in this setup. I love tequila. Yeah. Just agave spirits in general.
Yeah. David, how about yourself?
I gotta say Armagnac also probably would, but just to be different, I'll throw in Awamori.
Okay. And for me, it's probably Armagnac as well, but I will toss in Japanese whiskey just to be different. What?
Just throw this in if you don't mind, Kevin.
Yeah, please.
I had a bottle share about 2 months ago, and one guy, it's always courteous to leave something behind, right? That you bring. One guy left about that much in a bottle of Line Cantata for me. It's like, yes,
nice.
It's a great gift.
So, Mike, you said Armagnac, and David wanted to say Armagnac, and so did I. So Steve was really the outlier with tequila. Mike, David, I'd be interested in your thoughts on tequila.
I like it. It's just my experience isn't that high. I mean, the tequilas that I have not reached out to try to find good tequilas. I know that there's a couple of brands that I have heard that I really need to try, but I only see them on secondary. And so that's a little hard. Locally, again, there's a couple that I've picked up. It's like, it's okay, but I know that there's much better options, and I do need to do exploring. Like when I go someplace with maybe a better tequila market, like Texas or Arizona, when I go down there.
Mm-hmm. David,
where are you, Mike?
Do you think?
Kansas City.
Yep.
I do not like tequila at all. But in fairness to tequila, it's I don't like agave syrup either.
Mm-hmm.
It's something about the agave itself that I just do not like. There are certain mezcals I like.
Yep.
So maybe it's just that, Blue Weber and Espinal types that I don't like. But yeah, so I'll allow for the mezcal in there.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's got to be in like a margarita or a mixed drink.
Yeah. Well, and I think you can do a lot of different things with tequila, which is one of the reasons that it's fun. But what about American distilleries creating their own agave spirits. You can't call it tequila, but what have you experienced any good American agave spirits?
Nope.
I have not tried any yet.
Yep.
There's too many good real agave spirits out there
Yeah.
to do that. That's
I-
not against my countrymen, but I'm just my interest isn't peaked yet.
I did try the Glens Creek one.
Yeah.
But again, it's I would agree with Steve. I would feel better about exploring and learning more about the real stuff before I'm sure somebody in the United States can make a perfectly fine agave spirit. But it's kind of the same thing. Somebody could probably make a really good bourbon somewhere else. They just can't call it bourbon, and it's not really bourbon.
Right. MB Roland has a good agave spirit. I haven't had a lot of those out there. I know that Ben Eves has talked about making some agave spirits that he's really enjoyed. But yeah, Armagnac is I think very unique, and you can get something that's 30, 40 years old for a pretty reasonable price, and something that's very unique, and that'll be fun to share with folks at your house.
For listeners like me, throw out some good Armagnacs that are in that category, Kevin, because I would love to go hunt them down.
Oh gosh, I really don't.
Delord.
Yeah, I just kind of find whatever's out there, and
Lincoln Tonic puts out. It's hard to say Lincoln Tonic because they put out so many different domains.
Yeah,
and like Luz Maroc, one of my favorites. I prefer stuff from Teneres, the middle Armagnac region. It's a little more acidic, and yeah.
David's clearly had more Armagnac than I have, but
I got a whole shelf full of it.
Lingatata is that's something that I've had several times, different ages, different everything, and it's always very good.
It's just deeply reflective of the source material. I think just grape, deep grape in there.
I'm not good with languages. so I will butcher it. And but I was looking up one that it was a specific year, but another one that I've got, it's a D'Artagnan Armagnac that I've had a couple bottles I really like, but the very lovely and talented Miss Nancy Fraley had suggested some Armagnacs, but it wasn't Armagnacs by name, it was by year, because she was naming there were certain years where the harvests were really good, and she had recommended one. It was 1964, so I have a Chateau de Pombert 64, and she said that 64 was a spectacular year for those, so go for one of those. Like, okay, it's like I'm not going to question Nancy. So
no.
The funny thing is, it's 60-year-old Armagnac, and you can probably find it for just a couple $100. Which
at the time I found it, I don't
my
think
birth year, boys.
I don't think it was $200 when at the time I found it. Which is crazy.
Yeah, a few years ago, I got an Armagnac that was from my birth year, and it was like 50-year-old Armagnac, and it was a couple $100. Yeah. So it's kind of crazy. The next topic that is important to the American people: education. So, Steve, we'll start with you. Who is somebody in your life that has been important in your bourbon education?
Wow. A guy named Michael New, who is one of the members of the 1789B group. Does anybody know those guys? Legendary barrel pickers. He and I both share background as chefs. I was in the 80s, and he still is. We met at a restaurant, and when Mike dives deep into something, he does deep. And by the time I caught up with him on his bourbon journey, I'm sure I was a solid dozen years behind. and he's a student and knows the history and has a fantastic palate. He has one of those noses that he can sit down and kind of record and memorize what he's smelling, so he can identify in a blind tasting what things are. I think I've got a good palate, but I don't have that kind of a connection to the memory of whose is what. And he's always, set it out there as an adventure.
Yeah.
And he and I have gone down the tequila road together, and occasionally I bring a few bits of information to him for that. But yeah. Mike's been great and helpful to me, but there's many more out there. Now, luckily, as a reporter, as David could tell you, we get to talk to the guys that make it all the time. So those guys are our, what's the old type of, it was a mobile school back in the old days. What do they call it?
The itinerant kind of thing.
Not Chautauqua. What is it? Chautauqua, I think it is.
Oh yeah, Chautauqua.
Yeah, so that's what we've got. You go to distillery, and you learn so much all the time.
Yeah.
So really, the pros have been some of my best educators too.
David, how about you?
I was running through my mind, and funny enough, most of the people I would think of didn't teach me a lot about bourbon. They taught me a lot about any other spirit other than bourbon or American whiskeys.
Well, that counts. That's good. That's good enough.
All right, I'll throw out Mike Vacris, the owner and bartender at Travel Bar here in the city, in New York City. I've been there so many times just trying new things, and I usually just tell him, I want to try something I haven't had before. I don't have at home. And I tried spirits from all around the world from there, both whiskeys and others. And there's something really great about having that kind of access. So I would definitely put him up there.
Yeah. Mike, how about yourself?
Initially I'd say not a person, but YouTube, because it things that I did not know existed, I found out about. I found where I had palettes that aligned with certain people that I had watched, but I started making a list of things that I wanted to try. And then next thing you know, I ended up meeting people such as yourself and David, and you make connections with people, you go to distilleries, and then it just snowballs from there. Yeah. But YouTube is probably the biggest one, because there was no, it's easily searchable. You could find way too many reviews on way too many things, but you can still find somebody that you align with that is getting something that you have never heard of before.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, I would say Chris Zaborowski. Chris was the co-founder and co-owner of Westport Whiskey and Wine here in Louisville, and it's really because of him that I got into whiskey at all. And he was always willing to share his thoughts and opinions on things as I would walk through the store. Hey, what do you think about this, Chris? Hey, what do you think about this, Chris? His barrel picks are legendary. He's probably somebody that I trust their palate as much as anyone's. And
he's the chump you cannot stump.
Yeah. I had the opportunity to go on a couple of barrel picks with Chris, and I would just stand there right next to him, and I would just take notes of what he did, what he said, how he did it. And I just learned a bunch from Chris, and hope that he is doing well in his next career, since Westport Whiskey and Wine sold a year and a half or so ago. But education is important in America, and don't short suit your bourbon education in America.
Kevin, something I want to add about Chris too, and I think it applies to what David even hinted at, that you didn't even have to have, in a lot of cases, a bourbon educator. I got a wine education in restaurants. Chris did too. And Chris was a wine seller for years. And once you build that kind of confidence in your palate, and you understand how to apply what you're tasting to memory and experience and all that, you can almost pivot to anywhere and start learning about it just through those experiences. You copy what you've already learned. And I'd be willing to say Chris even knows more about wine than bourbon, which isn't to diminish his bourbon knowledge. It's just
Right.
show how damn smart that dude is.
Right. Yeah. No, and you're right, and I think that it's a very good point that a lot of times the people with the best whiskey palates are the people that are foodies. They know their wine, they know their coffee, they know their fat guy tasting notes.
I wanted to throw in there, if you will, on the education side, and there's also a flip side where there are people who have taught me what not to do in the whiskey space. And Steve, I think you'll appreciate this too. And you mentioned, like, when we get to interview, whether it's interviewing some of these guys or people, or just meeting Jimmy Russell in the visitor center on a Sunday after church when he's just chilling there, we all have this idea. We come into whiskey that these people are legends and unapproachable and, you know, beyond our comprehension kind of thing. And then you meet them in person, they shake your hand and they remember you the next time you come in. And there's an incredible humility to them. And when you meet people from all over the country, all over the world who are in this industry, everyone's just grateful. They're happy to be there. They're doing what they love. And the few exceptions to that who are very, let's say, not humble about their operations and who they are, where they've come from, and all of that, leaves a bad taste in your mouth. So you really recognize how the rest of the industry is approachable. You can probably find a way to contact the master distiller of any distillery in the US through a couple of emails or a phone call. And that's really something to be appreciated.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. And I see that most are willing to be responsive and want to be somewhat accessible. There are a few that they've got their guardians at the gate, and I get that. You know, every knucklehead in the world is trying to get through so they can get a bottle of Blanton's or something. So
Mark Brown put his email out there. He's going to expect a lot of Blanton's emails.
Okay, we're going to a speed round now. So I've got 5 questions I'm going to ask you guys, and want your quick answer with your answer, a little bit of an explanation if you want to give it, and we'll see how this goes. The best decade for music is, Mike, what's your answer?
Oh, dear Lord. I'll say 1950s.
1950s. Okay. All right. Steve, what's your answer?
1970s, only because that's where I was young enough to tune into music. So I was in single digits back then. So I'm most knowledgeable about the 1970s.
Yeah. David?
1870s.
All right.
I was more. I grew up on classical music,
right?
Yeah,
Good world.
1870s. Why not?
We're 100 years apart on some of these. I would say the 70s also, but I would say the 1970s.
I was gonna say which one. Yeah.
Okay, so Steve, I absolutely understand and get your answer. Okay, Mike, 1950s. Why the 1950s?
That's what I grew up on listening to. Parents had a lot of that going on, and Saturdays listening to Dick Bartley's Solid Gold Saturday Night. And there was a lot of the old pioneer music going on, and without that you wouldn't have things for Led Zeppelin to steal. And I do like Led Zeppelin a lot, but you wouldn't have for these bands to pick up from or to carry over. Chuck Berry, creepy human, but influential in music and what he did for the with the Beatles. If you're a Beatles fan, obviously no brainers like Jerry Lee Lewis and Elvis and Carl Perkins and countless other acts.
True. Okay, all right. Now, David, your answer was I kind of get that from our previous music discussions, but kind of go into a little more detail on the 1870s.
I can do a modern answer too. That I can switch it up.
No, that's fine. No, I like it.
No, it's just that era, particularly in Russian and French classical music, where I think they achieve the most resounding depth in their composing. but that's someone who really likes symphonic music. So I want something that's really complex, still tonal, and none of the more modern stuff. But yeah, to me, that's just always the era that has attracted me.
Okay. Is there something from the 1870s that, okay, this is the piece of music that we should seek out and that you think would best exemplify the music? We're playing the hits from the 1870s, 80s, 90s, 1900s, 1910s, 1920s.
I got to check my dates on a couple of these. But,
Okay.
I'd say, yeah, I got to check my dates on those.
All right. Next question. You can bring back one Jimmy. You can bring back Jim Morrison. You can bring back Jimi Hendrix, or you can bring back Jimmy Buffett. Which one are you bringing back? Steve, what's your answer?
Hendrix, without a doubt. Love Hendrix.
David?
Hendrix, without a doubt.
Yep. Mike?
Hendrix, without a doubt.
Okay. Yeah, it's a clean sweep there. Hendrix, without a doubt. The best celebrity spirit brand is what, David Levine?
Crap.
Glad you went first, David.
Yeah, real sacrifice to the lambs on this one. Well, lambs? Nope, wrong one. Sacrifice to the wolves on this one. Best celebrity brand. I gotta say, Whiskey Gypsy. Though I still got a problem with the name, Whiskey Gypsy.
Okay. Mike?
I've avoided a lot of celebrity ones, but there's one that I like, and I like the celebrity a lot, and I know you're going to chuckle. Bradshaw.
Okay. No, I
Carrie or Terry?
Huh?
Carrie or
Terry, the only TB12 that there ever existed in the NFL.
Steve, I think Steve may be trying to check out his inventory of celebrity whiskey.
I am, and the only reason why I'm using a background is because the wall
Traveler
is mid construction. Oh, Traveler's back on my shelf, but that's not.
I almost got canceled because of Traveler. So.
Well, I do like him, but I don't like the whiskey.
Yeah, I think that we would agree on that.
Yep.
I mean, it's kind of a faux celebrity endorsement. It's Jack Daniels, but Sinatra was only drinking 80 proof, so we can't do that. Man, that's a struggle. 10 years ago, when Casa Noble was invested in by, it's tequila. It was invested in by Carlos Santana. It was really good tequila.
Okay.
But since then, it has gone the way of additives under ownership of Constellation, and so it's tamped down what was otherwise a really good spirit. So that's the only one that I can think of that I ever liked. Anything at tequila with a celebrity endorsement is so far that I can think of is just not good.
Not good.
Truly not good.
Mm-hmm. Heaven's Door. I think that initially I didn't really care for what they were doing, but I think the stuff that they've been putting out of late is a lot better. I think that they're taking it more seriously, and I like Bob Dylan, so
you got a source, somebody.
Yeah,
that's what he's singing.
That's exactly what he's singing. All right, David, we'll start with you on this next one. Best current use of MGP whiskey.
Wow.
We allowed to curse? I forgot.
Yes. If you need to, yes.
Right,
if you want to curse, if you want to curse at celebrity whiskey or MGP products, you can do that. Yes.
Best use. Shit. I need another second on that one, honestly.
You need a minute, Mike?
I need a minute on that one.
Buzzard's Roost.
Yep.
I think it's the most pure use of it. And honest.
What do you mean by pure and honest?
Because it's just saying we are buying MGP whiskey and we are doing this to it. And that's how we're finishing it. They're not blending it with something else that they made. They're not blending it with 6 or 7 other things or hiding the fact of where it comes, where it's coming from. And it's good. Consistently good.
Ken Schreiner says these questions are hard. That's right. They're hard. This isn't a
hang with us, Ken.
This isn't elementary school, Ken. Try to keep up.
I got my answer if you want.
Okay. All right, David, what's your answer?
All right. My answer is Doc Swinson's.
Okay.
Because I know there are plenty of people putting out single barrels and just sourcing MGP, and nothing necessarily wrong with that. But to me, they're doing the best job of using the product as a canvas to see what blends can pair with the most interesting finishes. And with the bunch of like crazy finishes like Amberana and all this that have flown through as fads recently, I think they have been most consistent in putting together a great finish that matches a blend that they make.
Okay. Steve, do you have an answer?
Traverse City. I've got an 8-year-old. Remember
Okay.
that? It was Bourbon and Banter pick. It was an 8-year-old rye, MGP rye, and it's outstanding. And it literally slapped the label on it. There was no rebarreling, no blending, no finesse. That just basically said, let's hang on to this and let it be what it is. And it's fantastic.
Yeah. My answer is the same as Mike's. I think Buzzard Juice is great. I think the secondary aging that they're doing is very creative. Everything I've had of that has been fantastic. I don't necessarily get excited about a sourced whiskey that's just put a label on it and put it on the market. You know, I know there are some good ones out there like that, but that's typically not something that I will seek out.
Right.
I'll prefer something that is from a distiller that actually distilled it. But you know, MGP a lot of times can get a bad rap, but I think they make some excellent whiskey when it's done the right way. But all right, last question in the speed round, and Mike, you'll be going first.
Okay.
The AC/DC lead singer of preference, Bon Scott or Brian Johnson?
Bon Scott.
Bon Scott. Steve?
Bon Scott.
Yeah. David?
Bon Scott.
Okay. I think everybody feels like they have to give that as the answer. But
I respect what Brian Johnson has done, because he was not a metal singer before joining AC/DC, but he has definitely carried that, and I think he's done a great job, and I appreciate him, and I love the music that they have done.
Yeah.
But Bon Scott.
Yeah. I mean, Bon Scott has a more soulful voice than Brian Johnson. Brian's more
just a voice of a lifetime. I mean, nobody sounds like Bon Scott.
Yeah.
I don't think.
But I think part of what made AC/DC. Okay, I'm about to toss Jay Tyler out of here. No, we're not talking about Axl Rose. God.
Even I knew that one wasn't right.
Well, okay, 80s Axl or divorced 60-year-old woman Axl? Which one? Because it's two different voices.
Well, it would have
looking
been
person.
It would have been Axl when he was singing briefly with AC/DC, and nobody wants that. But I know that everybody kind of goes to Bon, and I get that. But you can't be such a Bon Scott purist that you're going to say, I'm not going to listen to Back in Black ever. Okay, it's only the greatest selling album of all time, rock and roll album of all time. But all right, that concludes our speed round, and now we're going to drink some Glens Creek.
Okay, Mike,
I know you're a big fan of Glens Creek.
I'm very big fan of Glens Creek.
What can you tell us about OCD5?
That it is yummy and delicious, and I love it. But
yummy, delicious, and you love it.
Yeah, I know OCD is Old Crow Distillery. It does have the yeast strain that they had captured from there, but it is OCD number 5. I will say that was the first in a very memorable tasting of Glens Creek, of which I liked all their stuff. That's the first bottle of theirs I brought home. It is still my favorite. There's just there's a buttery note that I get all throughout Glens Creek products, and it's just this. it's just this beautiful, it's like savory Homer Simpson salivating fat guy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's the whole, I love every bit of it. And OCD 5 Premium is that on steroids.
Yeah. This is not the premium. This is just an OCD 5 that is barrel number 71. Everything they do is single barrel strength, right?
Yeah.
And this is 116.6 proof. So we'll taste on this a little bit while we go to our next question. And Steve, you look like you're ready to answer whatever this may be.
I'm just being blown away by the whiskey.
Good.
This
Good.
thing could almost pass off as an Armagnac. I get a big fruit tone in there that's darn near great. With
Okay,
that
before
crazy, diacetyl butter. No.
Yeah. Well, we'll go through and go through tasting notes in just a second after everybody has a chance to taste. But the question right now is the most underrated, readily available whiskey. So you can't just like throw out a craft thing that people can't get their hands on, or some, remote single barrel that you had someplace, something that's going to be on the shelf at a whiskey store that you think is underrated.
That's easy. It's one of my favorite whiskeys, and it's Old Forester 100 proof. For $23 for $7.50, you can get a really well done 5-year-old bourbon that you can sip neat. You can sip it on the rocks or make a fantastic cocktail from it. And yet, I'll probably get myself in trouble with Brown Forman for saying this, but it won't be the first time nor the last time. It beats Woodford hands down any day in any iteration. And it's an absolute bargain, and it is what it is. It's it's always been, and not always, but often called Louisville's whiskey because Louisvillians drank it. That's what it was. It was a hometown booze, and I can't tell you the number of Woodford executives that I know that say, "Well, my bar is Old Forester." That's what they like. So I think it's great. I think it's not had all the life cooked out of it by a triple copper pot distillation. So love it. It's a bargain.
Yep. David, how about yourself?
Well, first I gotta say the OCD in this
Reserve Glencairn here.
Sorry, Dave. No, you're good. The OCD. If you've been to Glens Creek, it's also Old Cranky Distiller or Old Cranky Dave.
Yep.
Love you, Dave. Now I'd say I got to go Four Roses Small Batch Select.
Okay.
It's great.
Yeah, it's just it's so good. It's consistent. Yep. It always to me feels like the small batch limited edition light. If they wanted to make that small batch limited edition taste the same every year and be consistently great for what $50-$55 max. Yep. To me that's the right one.
Yeah. Mike, how about you?
This is actually hard because I do drink even most of the stuff I have. I do have American craft even for a lot of daily stuff, but I won't pass up Old Granddad 114.
Best old fashioned maker ever.
Yeah.
Oh my God. It's yeah.
You stole mine, Mike. So I'm gonna pivot real quick. I'll say Noah's Mill. I think that is, people go after those purple top Willets and want to pay $600 for them. I'll take a Noah's Mill and I'll be happy. I mean, it's $55-$60 or something, but I think it's exceptionally good whiskey. Has a lot of similar tasting notes as the very expensive Willet bourbons for a fraction of the price. So you guys have been champing at the bit to talk about this OCD. So Steve, tell us what you're thinking about it.
I cheated. I'm sorry, Kevin. I stomped all over your list of questions here when I went to the tasting notes.
That's all right. I appreciate the enthusiasm.
I was so genuinely surprised by that. And I'm even more genuinely surprised by my wife bringing fresh baked double chocolate espresso.
Oh, if there's not enough for everybody,
there's only everybody right here on this side of the camera. I'm so surprised by this. I don't recall the last time I tasted one of these whiskeys, Kevin, and this is great. it's just weird on its own, and it's freaking delicious. You get fruit, you get butter, you get all this crazy stuff, and leave a ex-chef food writer to like me to this, and you're going to have one of those reviews that people hate because there's way too many descriptors. But there's a lot going on here.
Yeah,
it's really, really good.
Yeah. Yeah. David,
I know you're
100%
agree with you on that, Steve. Yeah, I'm a huge fan. Oddly enough, I mean, I love this, and it's actually my maybe third or fourth favorite product of theirs. But yeah, I'm getting a ton of definitely fruity, like especially strawberries and dried strawberries on here. Like when you get those kind of fruit roll up or Twizzler alternatives that are made with real fruit.
Yep.
Yeah, and Steve, I agree. I could see me going into way too much detail on. I just did on all the different fruits on there. So, but great mouthfeel. I think it drinks below proof as well, and it's got that butter.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You'd said strawberries, and I'm embarrassed to admit that the dried strawberries that I think of are those in Special K. I haven't had Special K in 10 years. It just happened to be in one of those variety packs of the little boxes of cereal. I thought these dried strawberries are fantastic, and I've picked those up so many times in whiskey, and it's there in that one for sure.
Mike, what do you think?
You know what I think of this. I try to go to Glens Creek every time I'm in town. I like 20 bottles of Glens Creek down here at my feet. I'm with David. OCD5. It's not as a whole. It's not necessarily my favorite of Glens Creek's, but I really really like it. And their products, I think they're doing something truly unique for flavor.
Yeah. And
down the road from the Pretty Place, made on like the first time we go there and we try it all, and they're like, "Oh, excuse me, you made all of this on that?" Because they're old keg still, and he's like, "You just need to know how to run a still." Like, I love you guys so much.
Yeah.
They still have not fixed that road in the other direction. I'm sure.
No.
It's been out for 3 years.
Yeah. No, I think this is fantastic. It like you guys say, it's buttery, it's fruity, it's funky, it's the perfect thing to bring out at a bottle share when everybody's passing around. Hey, I've got an Eagle Rare. Hey, I've got an Old Forester. Or I've got try this, and once you try OCD, you can't go back.
I'm gonna have to get one.
It's true.
And one time I was up there with Mike, and he was picking up 5 different bottles of something that they had in the locker there for him. And I just grabbed something there on the lark, a bottle of the Hamilton Smoke, and good. And I put it in the shelf, and I kind of forgot about it. And I was digging around one day, and I said, "Oh, I hadn't even opened this yet." And I tried it. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, this is incredible." So if you're in Kentucky and you're doing the Bourbon Trail, look, bypass one of the big guys. I'm not saying don't go to your favorite distillery, but pick out a couple of these craft places to go to, and it'll rock your world. It will. You'll get to meet the people that are actually working the still, and taste some incredible stuff, and get a lot of history like you do at Glens Creek. Okay, so now we're going back to some questions. David, I want you to rank these in order: Yacht Rock, Southern Rock, and Grunge. And none of these were around in the 1870s, by the way.
No, I wasn't around when these were big either. So I'm gonna say Southern Rock top, Yacht Rock next, Grunge last.
Okay, Steve, how would you rank them?
Grunge, Southern Rock, Yacht Rock.
Okay, and Mike?
I'd be the same. Big Grunge, Southern, close together, but Grunge, Southern, then Yacht Rock.
Yeah. I would say Southern, Grunge, and then Yacht Rock. Although Yacht Rock's I think it's kind of a bad rap. I think, Steve, you and I traded some comments about Steely Dan at one point. But
is that Yacht Rock?
Yes, that would be considered yacht rock.
Could be jazz fusion, jazz rock fusion.
I thought it was more Prague yacht. Say that 5 times.
Prague yacht. No, I'm not going to try to say that.
I've never even heard yacht rock until you tried that out.
All right. The best trend or innovation in bourbon of these 3: single barrel, cask strength, or barrel finished. Which is the best trend or innovation of the past, I don't know, generation, let's say. Mike, do you have a thought?
I'd say cask strength.
Cask strength. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll go around and get everybody's answers, and we'll get some comments if you want. David, what are your thoughts?
Agreed. Cask strength.
Cask strength.
100%.
Steve?
Single barrel.
Single barrel. Okay. So, Steve, let's go with you then. Why do you say single barrel is the better of the innovations?
Just one of a kind. That's hard to back off of, because cask strength makes it so much more uniform and easy to access. But single barrel, I love it. That's really the only unicorn out there right there anymore. Right. But while I'm at it, I'm kind of over. I'm finished with finishes, almost to that point. There's so many crazy ones out there that don't make any sense. But when you find some terrific ones, you go, okay, yeah, this is why this is important. But yes, single barrel.
Yep. David, thoughts?
Steve, you're saying you don't like the toasted coconut raspberry chocolate finish?
No, that plus Ambarana.
Plus, oh god, you had me until Ambarana. I hear what you're saying, Steve, and I do agree that there's a single barrel element, especially when you get to pick the barrel, who's picking the barrel. There's nothing like it, and that is great. But I think cask strength ultimately gives you the best expression of what the whiskey is, and it allows you as the drinker to also choose your own adventure. Do you want it at cask strength? Do you want it on a cube where it's not going to get watered down because it has enough heft to it? Do you want it in a mixed drink? Booker's Old Fashioned is great. It'll kick you a little bit, but it's great.
Oh, it's a sweet
cake. Yep.
Yeah.
Yes. It's
a cake from a lover, not your teacher or your father.
A Booker's Smoked Old Fashioned is a fantastic autumn cocktail. So, but we digress. Mike, what are your thoughts on those 3 options?
I picked cask strength because I think cask strength again it's okay. This is the whiskey as it was given to you by the gods or by God. You can, as David said, you can proof it down. You can do whatever you want to with it. Yeah. That having said that, yes, I love single barrels. I love the uniqueness of it because it is okay. You like this, you want to try something really special, but it's going to be cask strength to be the single barrel. So that's why I picked cask strength over it.
Yeah. Cask strength or single barrel would have been appropriate answers. The next question, and you guys kind of leaned into it a little bit. The worst finish is Ambarana. Agree or disagree?
Agree.
Yeah. Steve agrees. David, do you agree? Or you've probably had some really weird things out there that
it's not the worst finish I've ever had.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
But God. I can't even. I might have to tell you off air on that one. I will say Ambarana, as far as mainstream finishes go, I would put it up there as the worst. And I think it had the ability to be good. It could work, but if you had a liquid in a cask of Ambarana for more than 2 days, maybe 3, you overdid it.
Right.
If you had something that was finished in Ambarana for 6 months, just make it into cinnamon extract and put it in a perfume bottle because there's nothing else you're going to taste afterwards.
Yeah. Mike, what do you think?
I think I won't say it's the worst finish. I think it's the worst finish that people took advantage of.
Okay.
Because it was used to hide a lot of things. It was used to fix things. I've had very, very good Ambarana finish. And I've had some that's just not good. And it is like David said, they did it too long, or they did it like, hey, we got some stuff here. It's a little off. What can we do? Hey, Not saying that's what people would use it for, but they could definitely use it for that.
Yeah. Port isn't going to be potent enough. What do we do?
Port's too expensive. Now everybody's bringing these in.
Yeah.
And I would like to give a little discussion of this because I think, David, you made a great point that you said 2 days. I had an Umbrana finish from Casey Jones in Western Kentucky that was a couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
That seemed just right. It was actually good, but everything else was exactly what you said, that tea berry gum, that cinnamon overdose, packed with dried flowers. It just was awful. It was like, what are you hiding? Why are you putting this lipstick on your pig of a whiskey? It was just not good.
Yeah.
Steve, with Casey Jones, do you know if they did, a cask, chips, what their method was?
A cask. I'm almost sure, but I believe it was cask. Right. Remember those little sausage chip things that go in the little cheesecloth things that they leave it
It's basically teabagging the whiskey. Yeah.
Yeah, basically so. Yeah, I'm surprised how many people have gone for that barrel when it's just not great. But I want to know, David and Kevin, you can tell me to shut up. This is your show. What were some of the worst that you had? You don't have to name brands, but what were the casks that overdid it for you?
Oh man! Now that I have Umbrana in my head, it's hard to get past that. Honestly,
I think Oloroso Sherry can be awful.
Yes.
Yeah. Oloroso. Yeah.
But Owen Martin at Angel's Envy, when we picked our single barrel for the Bourbon Festival, it was 17 months in that barrel, and it was magic. Mm-hmm. So this 4, 5, 6 month kiss, this kind of first date kiss of an Oloroso Sherry barrel, always comes off as acidic and nutty to me. But this was crazy good, and I'm sure it's going to be a crazy expensive bottle when we see it.
Yeah. No, I think the Oloroso, because if you see an unspecified sherry cask on something, chances are it's Oloroso, unless it's just so sickeningly sweet that it's PX. Oloroso can be used to hide things. It can also be fantastic, but it's all about the cask and how people took care of it. Like if it's a fresh cask or fresh dumped, or even maybe a couple weeks at most, and it's held together well and treated well, it's probably going to be pretty good. But if it's been used multiple times, if it's been 6 months since the actual liquid was in there, if it started, God forbid, if it started sulfuring, in which case you can only sell it to the German market, then real thing that they do, that if you find something that's too funky or too sulfury, brands like rum brands, Hampton Estate sells the most in Germany. They sell their highest ester rums in Germany. For whatever reason, that's where the market is.
Wow.
So if you don't take care of the Oloroso, it's going to be, you want rancio, then that nuttiness that you were talking about, Steve, you don't want rancid. And fruit can go rancid really quickly.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on to the last thing that we're trying is kind of a little sneak preview. It is from Old Homestead Distilling Company, and this is not their official packaging. I promise you that. Jolie would have a fit. But Mike and I got to visit there a while back, and were able to procure some samples. And this is a sunflower-based spirit. So we'll sip on that a little bit while the question that I've offered to you guys. And I think I may have had bits and pieces of this conversation with all three of you at some point. And that's the distiller versus the distillery concept. In the last few years, we've had several prominent distillers leave distilleries. You look at Caleb Kilburn, you can look at Alan Bishop, you can look at Denny Potter. What's the impact to that distillery when that distiller leaves? When you've got a situation where it's not a owner / distiller operation, but you've got someone that owns the distillery, and then they have an employee as a distiller, and that distiller leaves. What's the impact there, and what does that mean for that distillery in the future? David, do you have a thought?
Kevin, last time I was on Bourbon Turntable, I know we spent a bit of time talking about this just because Alan had just left Spirits French Liquor, was about to, and I think I'll reiterate my answer then, which was it comes down to, is the brand and the distillery about the product or about the personality? And if it's about the product, you can usually have a pretty good and consistent transition when a distiller moves away. If it's about the personality and one or two people, that distillery is it's probably not going to survive, and it's not going to be as good. And the few that have let's take that example out. Let's take Spirits French Lick out. I think we've seen others in acquisitions where the original owners, to your point, or original distillers move on, and the whiskey at best changes, at worst goes to hell. And it's largely about, is the person making it the person who is drinking it and cares about it, or is it someone else?
Yeah. Steve, Mike?
That's a big one to unravel. David gave away the best example of that, of course, of Alan leaving Spirits French Lick. I think because his influence over the product was so profound, can they replicate that? Is the question that I think a lot of us are asking. That is, I don't know that many distilleries at which the distiller is the owner. Right? There are a lot at the craft level, of course.
Right.
You take somebody like Denny Potter, he was mentioned at Maker's Mark. Well, of course, Maker's Mark has a system, and he was great at refining and replicating that. So his departure probably isn't going to, and I would think he would say the same, isn't going to have a huge impact because it's been going on long before he was there. So they know how to do it. But gosh, on the other hand, David, there are so many people who are distillers, but they are the personality and they're not even distilling. It really gets fuzzy, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So
I think you're right, though.
Go ahead, David, please.
You're right. And I'm sorry to cut you off on that, but you're right in those places like a Maker's Mark or, Jim Beam makes a huge deal about their lineage, quite literally with a product called Lineage. And the nose and the beams going back, and I feel like people forget that Jerry Dalton was master distiller there for a decade plus, and things kept on going, and it was fine. And same thing, Jack Daniels. Jeff Arnett leaves, Chris Fletcher comes in. Yes, there was an apprenticeship kind of model there, but still, these brands have their ducks in a row. If I don't know why I'm blanking on his name right now. I'm fully in baby brain at the moment. But
what distillery?
Buffalo Trace Sazerac.
Harlan Wheatley?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if Harlan, and I'm thinking of the blender as well.
Oh.
Not Drew, but
that's what I was thinking was Drew.
But either way, like if Harlan or Drew leaves, whenever they leave, because everyone leaves eventually. Does anyone think that the whiskey there or spirits there are going to go downhill? Like I said, they might change, but they've got a system.
Right.
And
Mike.
And God bless Jim. Sorry, the last thing is God bless Jimmy Russell. We're celebrating him to start out the night. May he, live another 70. I think it's unrealistic, but may he live another 70, being the master distiller. Anyone think when he's gone that Wild Turkey is going to be, wildly different?
No. And I completely agree with everything that you guys said. It is a lot about there's a culture involved, and you like to equate it to if you have a construction company and you got some finished carpenters who are really, really good. Well, if you're an average company and you have really good finished carpenters and they leave, you're still just an average carpenter or a carpenter company. That's all you are. Same thing with a distiller. If you've got a distiller who you have not built a culture, you have put all your eggs in the basket of a distiller, and that distiller leaves, you are just a distillery. You have no identity. You haven't built a culture around anything. Right. And to all your points, you said those people leaving, Dave Pickerel leaving Maker's Mark. Dave Pickerel's fantastic. Maker's Mark wasn't going anywhere. Jim Beam's not going anywhere. Those processes are in place, and nothing is going to change to those core products at all because they won't do it. But there is a system and a culture in place there that, you could have guys working 40, 50 years there. You could have people rotating in and out every 5 or 10 years. But some of these smaller distilleries, I'd still call Peerless fairly small, but I think that Peerless has built a system, and they work their kinks out together, and they've got I don't think their whiskey is going to go downhill one bit. I think that they built a culture around it that they will survive. But other ones, like we mentioned, I don't know that Spirits of French Lick has done that. I would hope that they would, because there's a lot of stuff there that's really good that's sitting there, and you're in a prime position to continue this thing on. But they're just some distilleries don't have a culture. They're just, we got a guy, he's really good.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the bigger distilleries that have been around for generations, if somebody leaves, there's less risk of the product diminishing. With a smaller distillery, let's say, okay, Denny leaves Maker's Mark. Does that tank Maker's Mark? No, probably not. When Caleb left Peerless, that was a little bit more of a risk, because Caleb had been there since day one. And that was something that I thought, well, if you're Corky, do you say, okay, Caleb, we want to keep you on as our master distiller? And I think Corky and Caleb had a great relationship. I think they probably still do. But does it make sense to make some sort of deal with Caleb to keep him there to eliminate that risk? And I think certainly at Spirits of French Lick, if you look at that situation, I never understood why there was not some deal made to keep Alan there, because Alan was doing everything in terms of the promotion of the brand, the mash bills, the distillation process, you name it, he did it. And now that's walked out the door. And I think there's a very significant risk that is going on at Spirits of French Lick now.
It comes down to the smaller distilleries. They've got to have succession planning.
Right.
They've got to have apprenticeship. And not to focus on this case too much, but at Spirits of French Lick, Justin was ready to go, and other things happened there. But the thing that these long-standing multi-generational distilleries have is the succession planning. If Freddie No tomorrow decides that the Little Book series isn't enough, I got to go start my own distillery. I'm done being the 8th generation. Someone will step in.
Yes.
Right. Some Jerry Dalton. Shadows. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And to another example you gave earlier, Kevin, of MB Roland, Paul there is always talking about, the first generation distillers are the ones you got to watch, because what happens when they decide either I'm too old, I'm tired, I'm done, I got to do something else. And if they want their brand to succeed and the distillery to continue, then they've been thinking about that for years, because nobody decides that overnight. And they have the succession plan.
Right.
The ones that are closing or suffering for that reason don't have the succession plan.
Right.
And then they get left in the lurch.
Yeah. So let's tell me what you think of this sunflower spirit from Old Homestead.
This is crazy. I love it.
It
Are sunflower
Mike?
seeds considered a grain?
I'm not sure.
Is it a sugar source? Would be my question, and apparently it is, right? So you can.
Mhm.
Well,
Yep.
there's sunflower oil, right? Well, that's not going to
No.
ferment. So
Where
do you get this
malted,
from?
malted sunflowers, malted black sunflowers.
So
and,
the seed, Mike, or so how does that happen? What part of the flour is malted?
The seeds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In
So-
the shell.
Yeah, it was if I remember correctly, it was black sunflowers, plums, raisins, and I think oats was the last one in there.
Yep.
It was 4 grains.
You can taste plums and oats in there for sure.
Yeah.
Maybe because those are the ones I recognize. The other,
Yeah.
How would I recognize a
Yeah.
fermented sunflower seed? That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
But this is 140 some proof. I don't. He just said north
you
of
kidding me?
140.
Really?
Yeah.
Seriously?
This drink's 120-ish, maybe.
And,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it is
Yeah.
it is oily.
Yeah. It's I
Yeah.
it's one of those things I don't know exactly how
It's fantastic.
he does it. I know that he's been working with sunflower for a while. He learned about using sunflowers to make spirits from Mike Stallings, who was kind of a legendary moonshiner here in Kentucky and a great friend of Alan's. So this is a bit of a tribute to Mike, but Alan's kind of taken it and pushed it to the next level, and he's got some really cool stuff working over at Old Homestead. I think that they'll probably officially open the distillery next month, I think was what they were targeting, wasn't it, Mike?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there, and this being the base for their sunshine spirits.
Mhm.
Yeah, moonshine made at night, sunshine made during the day, and we tried a couple of other spirits that were made with this at the base, along with a couple others. But this is something that is really, really unique, and I think it's very, very interesting to sip as it is.
Mhm.
I can just dream about what barrel influence is going to do to this.
Yeah.
This could be absolutely crazy. And there, who knows? He might end up doing some sort of I hate the term rapid aging, but I'll say rapid maturation.
Yeah.
To it, but
Yeah, it's good stuff. But-
This could substitute vodka or any agave spirit in a cocktail. I would think you could. I would love to try to play around with it that way.
100%. 100%.
This feels like a finished product without any barrel influence.
Yeah.
Like
Mhm.
Mike, I agree with you. I'm curious to see what the barrel does to it, but I'd also be very happy just like instead of buying a white dog of something that's put out
Yeah.
just to say we've had the white dog of it, to have this instead.
yes.
And somehow there's a smokiness to it.
Mm-hmm.
Makes me think of baseball games with all those sunflower seeds.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yeah.
There's a tequila called El Velo, and it has that same. You're calling it smokiness, Kevin. I'm getting kind of a funk, almost a petroleum note to it. But it's really pleasant because it's weird. It's often strange and fun.
I think Alan just popped into the chat. So
I did. I
Must
said you should hear what we're
must have
saying.
felt his
all
ears
saying
burning.
about your spirit. Just take-
yeah. So if you missed it, Alan, you're just gonna have to go back and watch the rest of the show while we bragged on the stuff that you're making over at
That's crazy.
Old Homestead.
Yeah.
It is very cool. And when I have a little bit more of it, I'll play around with some cocktails with it. But right now, I'm just gonna drink it as it is.
Yeah.
So let's we've been going for a while now, and I've got just a few more questions for you guys. And I thank you very much for being here. This has been a lot of fun. Mount Rushmore of bands or musicians.
Ooh.
And so David, I'll give you a second so you can figure out who was playing in the 1870s. Mike, do you have a ready Mount Rushmore of your favorite bands?
Well, you've only given me 20 seconds, Kevin.
Yeah, I know. But I mean, there are probably two or three that are no brainers, and you're just trying to figure out who to toss out to make the fourth. If I had my guess.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I would definitely put Jimi Hendrix up on there. I would put Muddy Waters on there. I would probably put Elvis. And man.
The three is easy. The
three's easy. Yeah.
The fourth is like, now I'm going to completely offend every other band that I've ever liked.
Yeah. I mean, I would see, it's too hard. I'll say Bob Dylan.
Okay. No, I like that. So,
yeah.
So say those four again.
Oh, now I got to remember.
He's got to rewatch too.
Jimi Hendrix,
yes.
Muddy Waters,
Muddy
Elvis,
Waters.
and
Okay.
Bob Dylan.
Okay. All solo performer, not bands. Okay. All right. Steve, do you have an answer?
It's going to be tough. Oh, boy. Maybe Donald Fagen. Jimmy Page.
Okay,
John
so
Bonham.
Donald Fagen, we're talking
Steely Dan.
You can say bands. You can say Steely Dan. You can say Led
bands.
Zeppelin. Yeah.
Steely Dan.
Bands or
Led
musicians,
Zeppelin.
Yeah.
Probably the Police, only because of their. I love that weird reggae punk vibe.
Yeah.
They put
Regatta
together.
de Blanc. There's your reggae album.
It's my favorite album of theirs.
Mhm.
Absolutely. There was a band called the Bears. Adrian Belew led that.
Oh, okay.
It's a fantastic club band that I saw. And who do I like of late that belongs on that? Sheesh. Come on, Steve. Come out with something. Oh, my goodness. It's not XTC. It's not. I don't know. Elton John was part of the audiograph of my youth.
Okay.
A lot of that.
That's a fair answer. That's a very fair answer. David, do you have a Mount Rushmore of bands or musicians for you?
All right. In fairness, I'll give two Mount Rushmores, one for pre and one for live today.
Fair enough.
All right. So classical wise, Tchaikovsky, Mahler, Rachmaninoff, Gershwin.
Yeah.
Okay.
Modern. Elton John, definitely.
Yep.
Billy Joel. Got to throw Queen up there.
Yep.
Preferably with Freddie Mercury, but I'll be honest, Adam Lambert did a damn good job.
Mhm.
Nobody's Freddie Mercury, but he did a damn good job.
Right.
And last one I'll throw as a wild card is Marianas Trench.
Oh, wow. Okay. Okay. All right. I would say Led Zeppelin, Rolling Stones, Leonard Skinner, and Tedeschi Trucks Band. That would be my four.
I just got turned on to them last week. They're fantastic.
Oh yeah, you got to see them live, man. You got to see them
fantastic.
live. Their recorded stuff, I love it. It's fantastic. But a Tedeschi Trucks Band live show,
it'll blow your doors off.
Next level. It is so darn good. Yeah.
Trombone Shorty. I should have thrown that in.
Oh, that's a good one too.
Yep.
I did. Yeah, it's too hard to narrow it down because I was thinking you can get really strategic and say something like the Yardbirds because of what the Yardbirds produced. That would be an easy one.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's too hard to get four on there.
Yeah. So okay, now this may be another difficult question. A Mount Rushmore of a different vein. Your Mount Rushmore of modern era distillers. So we're not going back to Jim Beam and Albert Bacon, but kind of in the last 40, 50 years. 40, 50 years. So we'll kind of give you a second to think about that while we talk more about this. This is fantastic. Okay, first of all, you see my glass? Mike made that glass for me. That's pretty cool. If you know what that is, you are old.
And you knew the value of that piece.
Uh-huh.
Because if your brother or sister lost it,
if I remember playing, had my 45s, playing them on the turntable, and my sister got in there messing around in the room, and she took this little adapter thing, and I was so upset. It was so terrible. So Mount Rushmore of distillers. Steve, you have an answer?
Oh my gosh, this is tough. Larry Ebersol from MGP. I'm a huge rye fan.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you how many times in the last year I've been told by smaller distillers that this guy taught us how to do rye the right way. So that's Smooth Ambler, New Riff, Mild and Green, I think. I mean, all these people look up to Larry Ebersol as the genius of rye. So who do we go to from there? I love Alan Bishop. He's on the call. He knows I do. So I'm not fanboying. Oh, gosh. That's tough, man.
Yep. Well, I'm giving you basically a generation and a half. So let's say 50 years.
Do they have to be alive?
Based on their whiskeys? Or based
No,
on
they
their
don't have to be
personality?
alive. They don't have to be
Okay.
alive. No, not at all.
Be alive. I love Fred No. Fred No has made such an impact on me as a guy who has been so open and offered me connection to his family and Freddie and his wife and all these friendly people who have taught me so much about the fantastic culture of bourbon. So it goes more beyond the whiskey he's overseen.
Mm-hmm.
And now who else? Chris Morris has taught me a lot. He's preserved the beauty of Old Forester with being told to elevate the ordinariness to make the word of Woodford. Yeah. And I know he loves Old Forester.
Yeah. Okay.
Who else? I got one left.
You said Larry, Alan, Fred, and Chris. That's 4.
Okay, it's 4. Got it.
Yeah.
That's right. There's only 4 on Mount Rushmore.
And is there somebody you're wanting to throw off now and add somebody else?
Jeff Arnett was pretty fun in an interview from Jack Daniels just after he retired, and he felt like he could say a lot. If you meet him, he'll tell you some stories.
All right, Mike, do you have an answer?
I do. This is hard too, but I'll throw one easy one out, and I think it's a comfort food answer. Jimmy Russell.
Yeah.
Also, Dave Pickerel, because of what the seeds that he sowed all over the place.
Yep.
And Hubert Germain, because of again what not only the products, but look who he taught from that tree.
Is he Germain Robin?
Yes, there you go. See, I told you right off the bat. Don't ask me to speak foreign languages.
That's all right. I've heard
names included. And then Todd Leopold.
Yep. Those are some good ones. David, how about yourself?
So I had to come up with some new ones because 3 of my 4 just got taken.
It's okay. It's okay to duplicate.
No, it's fine. I'll say, I will say, Larry Ebersol was on there for his impact on rye, undeniable. Hubert Germain, and Fred No as well. I think for me, Fred No is because one, he's one of the few guys who's willing to curse like he does and just talk real.
Yep.
And I
he
think
can
anyone
get away
who
with
puts
cursing in church because he's so funny. It's just how
God
he pulls it off. I don't know.
He could curse in a church and God would laugh. And and the third one that was kicked off was crap. What was it? It'll come to me. But I think mine would be Jim Rutledge.
Yep.
Willie Pratt. I'd put Lisa Wicker up there, and might not be familiar to American audiences, but Jim Swan.
Okay. Jim Swan is.
So he's been behind. Well, he was behind. He passed away in the late 2010s, but he did everything from Kabbalah, Penderin, M&H in Israel.
Mhm.
I usually think of him as like what Dave Pickerel did for American whiskeys post Maker's Mark. Jim Swan did for all these hyper local distilleries that then went on to great acclaim because of their profile, their wood structures. He also did Cotswolds. I mean, there's dozens that came from his influence. And you know, yeah, Dick Stoll's a great one. And Alan, yes, I know you're listening. I'm only not putting you on there because you'll be on there eventually. You'll be on there eventually.
Yeah. Those are all fantastic. I would say Booker, no. I just think that I've had the great pleasure of having some wonderful conversations with Jerry Dalton, and a lot of those conversations go to what he saw from Booker, and that just kind of solidifies the fact that Booker was not just a giant man, but a giant in the industry, and was very innovative and creative. Jim Rutledge saved Four Roses and took it from a trash whiskey to what I think is one of the most consistent whiskeys and quality that there is. Jimmy Russell is the master distiller of master distillers in the modern age, and I'd say Alan. He's creative, he's bold, and you know, I think that he is scratching the surface on the impact that he'll have, but even at the relatively young age, he is making a mark and has developed a reputation that far surpasses the number of years as he's been distilling legally anyway. So that's the Mount Rushmore questions, and I've got one more question for you guys, and I'll let you go. It's one show, one concert, one venue, one drink in your hand. Who are you seeing? Where are you seeing them? And what is the drink that you're drinking? And I'll give you a second to ponder that. Neil also said Alan has to be in the discussion. I think he does. And I think there are a lot of guys. Mike, I think you mentioned Todd Leopold. Todd is absolutely in that conversation. I think if you want to talk about underrated whiskeys, it's not necessarily readily available, except that you can get it online, and that's what Lenny Eckstein's doing out at Deerhammer. Incredible stuff, just super stuff. So I've been vamping a little bit. What's that?
I was going to say people like York Ruff out at St. George and Collins Bowman at Kings County also have to be in the discussion. And for impact, what they've bred out of their work.
Yeah. Steve, we'll start with you. Do you have an answer? Who are you seeing? Where are you seeing them? And what's the drink in your hand while you're at the show?
I'm rarely sentimental, but why not be sentimental with your wife, right? So There was a great club band from Cincinnati called the Sucker Dots. They were the offshoot of Adrian Ballou and the Bears. Adrian Ballou and the Bears were broken up because Adrian Ballou was grabbed by David Bowie for the third time to go on a global tour with him.
Yep.
And my wife and I loved that group. I love power pop bands, and they were, I love three-man bands especially. And we were drinking back in 1992. I forgot what the bartender had run out of, but she said, "Try this," and it was Absolute Courant vodka, cranberry, lime, and a splash of Sprite, and sing that band, crank it out for 4 hours, 4 freaking hours at 110 decibels. And I probably wouldn't be needing headphones if I were not at that show or multiple shows. But it was great music. It was average drink, but it was the whole vibe and the whole thing to be able to see that and know that I saw some of the best musicians I've ever seen up close and personal, and enjoyed it. You don't have to go to a big show to see a great band, for sure.
That is absolutely the truth. Absolutely 100% the truth. David, do you have an answer for that?
I do. Strangely enough, the hardest part of that was what am I drinking?
Yep.
I gotta go Billy Joel.
Okay.
Madison Square Garden.
Yeah.
Good show. He just finished what, 130? Was it
150?
150.
He did 150, but no, I saw him back in 2006, and it's kind of like a precursor 12 Gardens live to what he eventually did. And I'd say Billy Joel, Madison Square Garden, for like floor seats when everyone's singing along to Piano Man.
Yep.
Or Billy the Kid. And I'm drinking some Old Crow Chessman.
Okay.
How'd you sneak that in?
He's a
Anyway,
clever,
I had to.
He's a clever guy.
So that's pre-Magnetron, I guess, right?
Yeah. Mike, what's your answer?
This is a very difficult question, but I will say, just because I listened to the album a lot, Allman Brothers at the Fillmore when they were recording those shows.
Yeah.
And as far as what I'm drinking, of course, back then would have been the 70s, so it probably would have been some Jim Beam that nobody bought, so it was 15 years old and nobody cared about it, and it was in a really ugly decanter.
Yeah.
And it was at a small corner liquor store.
Yeah. I like it. One of the great things about doing this show is I have an opportunity to meet a lot of bands, a lot of musicians that are on their way up. And a lot of times I'll ask them, what's your dream venue? What's the goal for you? If you're playing at this place, you've made it. And probably the boldest answer I've gotten from anybody was from a guy named Dusty Bow. His music's awesome. I love him. Great guy and good friend to me, good friend to our show. I never go out anywhere that I'm watching him that he doesn't either, say something about me or the show or introduce me to some other musician. So he's fantastic. But when I asked that question of Dusty, he said, I want to do a headlining show at Yum Center. He said, that's my hometown. That's the biggest venue in my hometown. I want to play there. So my answer is I want to see Dusty Bow playing at the Yum Center, and my go-to drink at any concert is Wild Turkey 101. So I'm not going to break from that either.
Nobody asks how he sneaks that in, but the chessman gets the question.
That might be the house floor, David.
Yeah, they're probably serving it there.
But anyway, all right, guys, I've kept you for a long time. I think this has been a good time. At least I've had fun, and I appreciate you being on here, dealing with the various questions that I've posed to you without any advance notice, really.
Those are the best.
Yeah. You get the most
sources see the questions ever.
You get the most honest answers that way. And I think this has been a fun alternative to watching a debate of our presidential candidates of choice. So, but again, thank you for celebrating 3 years of doing this show. This is actually going to be show number 156. So that's kind of hard to believe. And I've been very blessed to have some wonderful distillers on, some outstanding musicians on who I greatly respect and love, and wonderful folks such as yourself. So thank you very much for joining in tonight.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
As
My
we're signing off here, I want to give you guys a chance to tell everybody where they can find you on social media. David, let's start with you.
Sure. So on social media, you can find me at you can always find me at Whiskey in My Wedding Ring. The Whiskey Ring podcast has its own social media, but it all redirects back to Whiskey in My Wedding Ring. So follow me there, and you can find the podcasts anywhere you find podcasts.
Awesome. Steve, how about yourself?
You can find me, a lot of what I write at bourbonbanter.com. You can find me this week at the Bourbon Festival, where I'm the Kentucky Bourbon Festival in Barstow, where I'm the director of content programming and doing the Bourbon 30 show. And you can find me on Instagram at Steve Coomes, and same for Facebook, just Steve Coomes, SteveCoomes.
Yeah. And Mike.
As I said before, most Monday nights live on YouTube at My Whiskey Den, the original My Whiskey Den, and on Instagram, which is getting expanded, it is The Whiskey Dad.
The Whiskey Dad. All right. And as for our show, again, you can watch us on YouTube. So if you're watching us on YouTube right now, go ahead and hit subscribe. We would appreciate that. You can listen to us on your favorite podcast platform, as long as it's Apple, Spotify, or Google. We have a Facebook page where we post all of our shows, including this one. And we have a Facebook group where we can share what we may be drinking that night and what we might be listening to while we're drinking it. So on behalf of Mike, Steve, and myself, until next time, cheers, love, and free bird.
Cheers. Happy anniversary.
Cheers, guys.
Thank you all.